My name is Eric Mintel. By night, I'm a professional jazz musician, but by even later at night, I investigate the paranormal. I, along with my team at Bucks County Paranormal Investigations, travel the country investigating all things paranormal. This is Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Mintel, Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. And I'm really thrilled today to have my guest on the show is a legend in the UFO field, in the Bigfoot field. The legendary Stan Gordon is with us today from Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Stan has been researching UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, all kinds of paranormal things since 1965. And we've got Stan on the phone today from Greensburg, and we're going to talk to him about his latest book, which I have right here, Silent Invasion, the Pennsylvania UFO Bigfoot Connection Casebook. And one of my favorite books. There's a lot of really great stories in here going pretty much, I guess, Stan, back to 1973, right? 73,
right,
74?
That covers actually it was probably the longest ongoing Bigfoot wave ever documented that occurred here in Pennsylvania that started in the summer of 1973 and continued into early 1974. Also, interestingly, in that same year, starting January 1st, continuing to the end of the year, it was ongoing continuously. It was a major UFO wave with hundreds of UFO reports coming in across the state. And luckily, I had my first research group already active, the Westmoreland County UFO Study Group, so we were extremely busy documenting all these cases as it was taking place.
It's amazing because, just some of the stories in here, and the other thing which was fascinating too, was the amount of physical evidence that was found, which on a lot of these cases, not a lot of physical evidence is found, but you found footprints, you found very odd footprints too, right? It was not your typical, Bigfoot footprint.
There was, we could talk for days and days.
Yeah, I know.
The event, and it's amazing what we found. And there was a lot of interesting. We made many casts of footprints, and a lot of the tracks were your three-toed tracks.
Right.
However, Pennsylvania has also had a history of your typical five-toed footprints as well, which adds more and more to the mystery because a lot of people weren't aware that not only in Pennsylvania but throughout the country, and even in many parts of the country and the world where you have a lot of Bigfoot activity and people talk about the five-toed footprints, but also what you don't always hear about is they also sometimes find three-toed and four-toed tracks, which, again, adds more and more to the mystery of what we're dealing with.
Exactly. And, Stan, for our viewers, what I always try to do with the show is really just, in a couple of minutes, just want to get people to know you, who, obviously they know you, but some people don't know you. Tell us, what was the fire in the belly? What made you want to become a researcher? And did you have an experience, or what was the catalyst?
Well, it was all a matter of coincidence, I guess you could say. I was actually 10 years old in 1959 when I got involved.
Okay.
And how I got involved is that my birthday happened to be during the Halloween season, and by sheer luck, my parents gave me an AM radio as a birthday gift on my 10th birthday, and I happened to be listening to the AM radio band that night, and there were some radio shows talking about haunted houses and flying saucers and strange creatures, and I was a curious 10-year-old, and I wanted to know if these stories were true or somebody was making them up.
Wow.
So I began to make a lot of trips to our local library, read all the books they had on the subject, began to clip articles out of the newspaper, made scrapbooks, and if somebody would have a story in the local paper who claimed to have seen something, I called them on the phone, I interviewed them, I kept records of it.
Oh, wow.
That's how it all began for me, and I was 16 years old in 1965 when the UFO incident happened near Kecksburg, PA.
Right, that was a seminal incident too that happened. I'm sure some of our viewers are familiar, but you were you really brought that whole thing. Back in 1965, it was brought to international attention, but you really kept the legacy of that incident going, and also the people that were there. So a lot of the people that are still around that saw what happened that night. Maybe you could kind of tell our viewers a little bit about what happened that night as well in 1965 in Kecksburg.
Well, again, we could spend days talking about Kecksburg, but it's December 1965. In the area here, it's about 4:47 p.m. It's just getting dark. And as the news begins to break in the Pittsburgh area, on Pittsburgh area radio and TV, what we're hearing is that this brilliant fireball was seen from Ontario, Canada, over Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And whatever that object was, it apparently came in over the greater Pittsburgh area about that time, and multitudes of people saw it. Aircraft pilots saw it in the sky. Multitudes of people saw it on the ground. To make the story very short, it apparently fell to a wood ravine in a little village of Kecksburg in Westmoreland County, about 40 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot we did not know at that time. But I began to collect information. I was breaking on the news that evening, and I began to try to make some phone calls the next day about it, but there was very little information to get and very few names in the paper. But over 53 years of investigation, which I still on occasion get some leads on the case, I tracked down many, I can't even tell you how many people, but in the hundreds of people who were involved. So I found out a lot we didn't know at the time. And one thing we found out was that soon after the object fell that afternoon down into the wood ravine, some of the local residents went down into the woods to see what this thing was, and they came across this large metallic acorn-shaped object semi-buried in the ground. So this thing is kind of an off-gold bronze color. It's big enough for a man to stand inside of. It's about 10 to 12 feet or more in length, about 8 to 10 feet in diameter, shaped like a big metallic acorn, but there's no weld marks, no seams, no rivets, there's no wings, there's no fuselage. On the raised up back part, of like you would see on an acorn, there were witnesses who were only a few feet away from it, standing down there looking at it. And they thought there were these raised up markings that looked more like symbols on the surface. Mm-hmm. And whatever this thing was, many people tell us it was moving relatively slowly. It made a change its direction along its path before it fell, and it made a slow descent down into the woods. I mean, we call it a crash landing because it crashed through the trees. It broke the trees down, knocked trees down. Right. But the object itself was pretty much intact on the ground.
Pretty much, yeah. So pretty much a controlled descent. And you know, the other thing is, and do you remember where you were that night?
Me, I remember exactly where I was. I was listening to KDK Radio in Pittsburgh because they had a talk radio show called Contact, and the host of the show was the late Mike Levine, and the reason I was listening to that show is he had a special guest on whose name was Frank Edwards, who some people might recognize, who was a broadcaster who had written some books on strange and mysterious happenings, and I wanted to listen to him. But coincidentally, almost the entire show is focusing on this breaking news story of this fiery object that was seen, and they're reading the newswire stories as they're coming across. They're interviewing people. And then later on, even KDK TV was breaking in with live reports that the military was now arriving in the Kecksburg area to search for an unidentified flying object. Wow. And it was a very fascinating evening for me because back then we had a black and white console TV, and I was running back and forth between the TV and the radio trying to get the latest reports because I wasn't driving yet. And it was an amazing evening. And then the first thing I did the next morning, I went to the local newsstand and picked up all the local papers because I was hoping it would be in the paper. And there it was, and I think almost all the papers, it was a headline story. In our local Greensburg Tribune Review, the morning edition had Army ropes off area, unidentified flying object falls near Kecksburg.
Wow. So it basically made the headlines, and then there was a shift, obviously, that, hey, nothing happened from the military. So nothing happened at all. And so that's kind of what for the last 53 years, everyone's been trying to, get the answers on. And why don't we tell us about the Westmorelands, your society? Then when did you started that, and how long have you been in existence? And just for our viewers that just want to know about you.
Well, the first group was the Westmoreland County UFO Study Group. It started in 1970. It started out as a small group, and I moved into the Pittsburgh area. And it was kind of a very, very specialized group in that a majority of people had some kind of specialized training. So the group was mainly volunteers, scientists, engineers, research people. I had police officers. I had former military intelligence people. I had all kind of experts in the group. We all did this around our full-time jobs. And by 1973, we had expanded to cover the whole state of Pennsylvania. Wow. We were very, very busy with many, many reports coming in. And we were surprised because we were beginning to get referrals from a lot of news media referrals, but the state police and other places were contacting us to follow up on different cases. And we're very busy. And then that major event, that major UFO Bigfoot outbreak occurred in 73, and it's lucky we were already set to go, and we were out there day and night, and that's why we were able to document so many amazing cases, so many very strange cases, and that's when I uncovered some very strange aspects of the Bigfoot phenomena, which I'm continuing to watch today, because even in recent weeks, we're still getting some very interesting, strange activity and some very strange reports.
Wow. Can you share a couple of recent reports?
Yeah, I will. But I also want to tell you, I went on to set up 2 other research groups over many years of different people in Pennsylvania, and that continued till November of '93, basically.
Wow.
When I have been continued to work as an independent researcher. So my hotline's been open since 1969.
Wow.
It's constantly ring with reports. It never stops. Between that and emails, reports come in here all year round, all the time. In recent months and recent weeks, there's been a lot of ongoing phenomena going on in Pennsylvania, mainly in the southwest corner. But recently I'm hearing reports down in eastern PA around Harrisburg, and I got reports last week up in northern parts of Pennsylvania, and it appears that something's going on out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now, do you personally field all the calls, or you obviously have your team too, so you have people that filter the calls and things like that?
Well, once again, since '93 I've been working independently, so I don't have my groups anymore.
So you're just doing it all yourself?
But I also still have contact with many other research people around the state and around the country, and some cases weren't going out, and I've been out in the field, out deep in some of the woods of Pennsylvania this year, and myself and other researchers have seen some very fascinating things out there in the woods.
Wow.
And I can tell you, for months and months, we've been getting reports from widespread areas from people who are calling in about the unusual screams and cries and howls they're hearing from their woods. Now, a lot of these people live in those woods all their life, and they're familiar with, coyotes and other wildlife sounds. Some of these people I interviewed, they're experienced hunters and outdoorsmen, and they're all saying, we're never heard anything like this before.
Wow.
And some of these areas have had a long history of Bigfoot sightings for going back years and years. And I was up in Armstrong County and down here in Westmoreland County, I'm thinking now probably a couple months ago, and when we were getting a lot of reports, because some of these people are saying, it's a beautiful day, we're hearing these screams and howls, we're hearing what sounds like trees cracking, trees breaking, things like that. And we went out and we saw some very interesting, healthy, at least trees 9 to 10 feet up that were twisted and broke. I mean, at that level. I mean, there was no other trees around. I'm pretty familiar with weather damage and that type of thing. I saw no indication of that. It was very odd.
Wow.
I can't say it was Bigfoot that did it, but I'm just saying it was fascinating because we're seeing things in far separated areas where we're getting a lot of reports. But we're also getting actual sightings of Bigfoot encounters. And if you go to my website, stangordon.info, some of this is on my website now. Some of these reports that people can look at, I'll be posting more.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that have been going on. I mean, here in Pennsylvania, and I know we're not going to have time to talk about this probably today, but during 1973, as all these Bigfoot sightings are going on, and many of the Bigfoot sightings were happening back then, and when this was happening in 73 and 74, it's a lot different than it was today, because there were no cell phones, there was no internet, and the news media was covering this very heavily, and they were giving it serious attention. So this was making local and national news on our investigations. And in a lot of cases, yep, there was physical evidence. So we gathered samples, we had laboratories examine some of the materials we found. We made casts of a lot of the footprints, and a lot of it was very, very intriguing. But I think what was most interesting to us is, one, we were on the scene again within minutes or hours after they happened. You could see the emotion in the witnesses.
Yeah.
How upset some of the people were. I mean, I saw grown men with guns in their hands shaking in fear. The animals. Now, I may have mentioned this to you earlier, I may not have, but in the 59 years I've been doing this, now this year is 59 years, I have never seen a UFO or Bigfoot myself. I've interviewed thousands of witnesses, I've seen a lot of evidence, but I have not had my own personal encounter.
Yeah, I think, and you have said that before, too, in other public forums as well. And that's the thing. I mean, all of these people, there are I don't know if it's the right time, right place, or what, but there are a lot more people that are having some. I mean, not only just UFOs and Bigfoot, but with ghosts. And I think I have a theory sometimes that there are people that are vessels for these type of sightings as well. I don't know. I mean, there could be some kind of connection with individuals that have these particular sightings. Yeah. I know the one case.
These are all things we can talk about in the future.
Oh yeah.
We don't have time.
I know.
And all this stuff, and I've looked into the backgrounds of witnesses, and we found some interesting things. But what I found in 1973, when all these Bigfoot sightings were going on, and what I was going to say, on TV, quite often you kind of get the opinion that they're telling you Bigfoot only is sighted at night, which in fact many of the best Bigfoot sightings, especially in Pennsylvania, are in daylight at very close range.
Yeah.
When I say very close range, I'm telling you, we've had incidents where people were 5, 10, 15 feet away from these things. At very close range, got great detailed accounts. And that still goes on. I mean, year after year, we're getting Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania. And like I said, some of the stuff we're getting in recent months and recent weeks is very fascinating. But going back to 73, I had always believed that Bigfoot, from what I knew, and I have been looking into Bigfoot in Pennsylvania since the 60s, investigating historical reports in the state, that they were probably an unknown type of primate, something that science had not yet confirmed.
Right.
But during that outbreak of 73, and we were not looking for it, believe me, because you got to remember, a lot of these calls were initially coming in the police departments, and then we were getting the reports and investigating them. But they were coming from credible people from many miles apart from all walks of life. And some of the things we began to uncover were highly strange. For example, some of my teams would get out to some of these locations. Soon after they occurred, there would be trails of footprints.
Wow.
Some cases, they would suddenly stop and vanish where there should have been more tracks. Even in incidents of fresh, heavy snow, they would suddenly stop and disappear. And that's still going on in recent years.
Well, even on your book, your Silent Invasion, even the artwork on the front of this is from an account that's in the book, where the UFO was landed, but they also saw two or three, I think it was two Bigfoot creatures that were near the UFO.
That's correct. Well, that's what we began to see at that time. We began to see a pattern where you would have a UFO sighting in a particular area. Within minutes to hours or days later, you'd have a Bigfoot sighting or vice versa. And then we began to have these amazing, well-documented incidents of Bigfoot UFOs seen together at the same time and place. And, I mean, that one case you're talking about, that is probably one of the most amazing cases in history. I mean, the whole thing's in my Silent Invasion book. And it's been talked about and written about all over the world. That was October 25th of 73 up in Fayette County, PA, which continues to be one of the most active areas in the country for Bigfoot and other phenomena. In fact, there's going to be a 3-day Bigfoot event up there, Bigfoot Adventure. They already have a website up in Fayette County next year.
Okay. And
I'm scheduled to speak there. And that's right in the middle of Bigfoot country.
Wow.
But along the Chestnut Ridge, the Chestnut Ridge is a mountain range. It's about 100 miles long. It runs in southwest PA through Westmoreland, Fayette, and Indiana County into Princeton County, West Virginia. It continues to be one of the most active, unusual areas in the country, year after year, for all kind of phenomena, from UFO sightings, encounters with Bigfoot, all kind of cryptids, underground sounds, mystery booms, all kind of weird phenomena goes along the Chestnut Ridge, even in recent weeks.
You just said...
I'll tell you about one of those. We have time today.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place. But anyhow, the evidence, and again, I know we don't have time to get into this, but as you've read in the Silent Invasion book, and as you've seen, and people over the world have responded to me about that book, because it gives you a whole different perspective on Bigfoot and why there's no bodies. But the one case in there is the one case that convinced me that, as reluctant as I am to say it, that there may be more to Bigfoot than a flesh and blood explanation, which is why there's no bodies. And that, just quickly, I'll give you the story quickly. February 6, 1974, as all these incidents are going on. This was deep up in the mountains of Fayette County. And at that time, and some of your listeners remember, we had a big national trucker strike. There was gas rationing going on. There was a lot of violence on the roadways. And here in Pennsylvania, because of that, the state police and the National Guard were patrolling together. They both responded to this incident that night. I couldn't get up to that scene till the next morning because I couldn't get gas down here.
No.
But anyhow, deep in the mountains. Here's this woman who lived in the mountains all her life, knew animals very well, was a very good shot, was in her little cabin home that evening watching TV when she heard a commotion on her front porch of the cabin. There was some pop cans out there. Someone was knocking the cans around. Previous to that, a few weeks before, there was a pack of wild dogs coming through, and she thought, I bet those dogs are back. I'll grab my shotgun, I'll fire over their head and scare the dogs away. So she loads her shotgun. She goes over, turns on the switch for the outside porch light, steps out on the porch, and there's no dogs, but standing right in front of her a few feet away is this huge, hairy Bigfoot creature, at least 7 feet tall, with his arms straight up over its head. And what's her reaction? She fires right into it with her shotgun. She said there's a bright burst of light, like the flash on a camera, and this creature disappears right in front of her. Her son-in-law and the family heard the gunshot 100 feet away. They called, asked her what she shot at. He grabs his pistol, starts walking up towards the cabin, and again, making the story short, he said he was surrounded by 4 or 5 hairy people with eyes like coals of fire.
Wow.
Started shooting at him randomly, ran into the cabin, and about the same time, there's this large object, like a big Christmas ornament, hovering over the woods at the same time. That's when they called the state police.
So so you're saying that basically, and I remember seeing that report and reading about that, and I think they did a reenactment of that. And as a matter of fact, I think you narrated it as well on television. But so not a flesh and blood creature, but obviously extraterrestrial. Then I guess we're going in that direction.
Well, we don't know, and I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to say on radio shows and the many other cases, we could talk for hours and hours about cases even recently, which suggest again that we're dealing with a phenomenon here that has a physical and a non-physical aspect to it. We don't know what it is. Again, for lack of a better term, these might be interdimensional. They come from another reality. Under certain conditions, they come into our physical reality. They can look physically solid at times, but there's some cases where they're not always physically solid. A lot of people don't know. There's a lot of things about Bigfoot. I have a whole lecture I do just on this now, and it covers the very strange aspects of Bigfoot that many people don't know about, which again highly suggests that there's more to it than a normal flesh and blood explanation. So I'm not trying to suggest that Bigfoot is a passenger in a spaceship from another world, because we don't even know for sure what the unidentified flying objects really come from.
That's
there
true.
are many theories out there.
Yeah.
I mean, could some be extraterrestrial? Could some be from another reality, another dimension? Could be time travelers? I'm not sure anybody knows. And it's a very complex phenomena. There's something going on out there, but right now I think currently it's beyond our present scientific understanding to realize what this is. And if you've read about the Skinwalker Ranch from years ago, well, what I wrote about here in the 70s is very similar to Skinwalker Ranch, and there's many other areas I'm aware of, even in Pennsylvania, ongoing right now, of people, certain properties where this is ongoing phenomena. Not just Bigfoot and UFOs, but the paranormals, screams, strange lights, orbs, apparitions, all kind of weird things are ongoing. And the more I know about the phenomena, I think a lot of these various phenomena somehow are interrelated.
Yeah, and then they connect. You connect the dots, and that's the other thing too. And we're going to let our viewers also know where they could find you online. We're also going to let them know when is your next speaking engagement, and where would that be? Well, that'll be online as well, I guess.
Best thing. Yeah, I actually have 3 big events this week.
Okay.
And then go to my website on our 2018 upcoming events.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things I can tell you in the works for next year. So I'll be updating that in January. I am going to be November 17th down at the Flatwoods Monster Museum in Sutton, West Virginia, speaking that day.
Okay, great.
A conference down there.
Okay. Well, and this will be out by then, so we'll make sure that we let people know that way ahead of time. And then also where they could find your books as well. That's also online on your website. So I'll have that on there as well. And then I think we need to do a part 2, Stan, because like you said, we could talk for hours. What I really want to talk with you about next time too is I want to really get to the nitty-gritty of this sighting that you had that's on the front cover of this book, Silent Invasion, because that was so intriguing to me. Not only what happened with the creatures, but what happened with the farmer, or with the farmer's son, which was just unbelievable to me. So maybe we could talk about that next time, and we'll set something up for that. We got about 3 minutes left. Can you tell us anything recent, like in the last couple of weeks, that you saw or investigated?
Yeah, there have been reports, and I mentioned, by the way, I didn't think we'd get it in. Books are available on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble as well.
Okay, great. Excellent.
And website is stangordon.info, so they can check on reports and the events coming up there. Yes, there have been a lot of things. That area out around Derry on the base of the Chestnut Ridge of Westmoreland County continues to be a very strange area year after year for all kind of reports. And there was an incident happened there early September this year. It was a rainy night, and this guy's riding down a road, and suddenly he said, in his headlights, this thing suddenly appears out of nowhere, and it's right in the middle of the road, going slowly across the road. And he said it's about 6.5, 7 feet tall, had a humanoid shape, but the whole thing is misty, like misty, foggy. It has a very broad, very wide chest, very big, very prominent. He said it was kind of stooped, like it had bad posture. And he said the weirdest thing was, he said I really couldn't see its legs well, or legs at all. And he said it looked like it was gliding or floating down the road into the field, and it disappeared.
Wow.
And I've had other reports similar of entities that are floating or gliding as well. And then I just received another report that I'm still doing interviews on, not only miles from there, and it just happened about a week ago, of another very close daylight encounter with something.
Wow. I
can't say it was a Bigfoot. You know, more and more people talk about these dogman sightings, which are some similarities to some of the Bigfoot stuff, but some differences. And then I've just got another report of last week up in northern PA of another close encounter with another somewhat similar creature. We're hearing reports down around Harrisburg, and there have been other really interesting Bigfoot sightings and other cryptids around Pennsylvania and the Pittsburgh area in recent months. So, yeah, there's a lot more we can talk about down the road.
Wow, this is great. I mean, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, that's the thing. The media really doesn't pick up too much on a lot of these reports. Well, they don't, I mean, in general. And they did back in the day. But I didn't realize how many reports were still coming in. I mean, not only through you, but there was just a report in New Jersey in April of this year that a woman saw a Bigfoot in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and she can't explain it. So it's a lot of reports coming in all the time, which I was shocked about how many reports.
There is a lot of reports coming in, and one of the reasons you don't hear about in the news is because the majority of people I interview don't want any publicity.
Yeah.
I mean, these people come in from all walks of life: men, women, and children, educators, police officers, hunters, all kind of people report seeing them. They're very reluctant to talk about it, and that's generally why it's not on the news, because they don't want to come forward.
Yeah, and that's understandable. I totally understand that. But you do have some of those people that are open-minded and want to get some answers, which is great too, and we always welcome that as well. But I got to tell you, Stan, it's always great talking to you, and I've been following your research for years. I've been following you on television. Stan has been on Unsolved Mysteries, you name it. He's all over the place. And we're going to let everybody know where you're at next. And again, look for his book, Silent Invasion. This is just an unbelievable account of a lot of different Bigfoot reports in the state of Pennsylvania. So, Stan, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for talking to me today. And we'll check in with you next time. We'll get part 2 happening. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right.
Very good. Have a nice holiday.
You too. Safe travels.
All right. Good evening.
Bye-bye.